Joanna Galis Lee has been living with kidney disease since 2009 and recently underwent a kidney transplant after nearly 6 years on the wait list. She is a board member of the Renal Support Network and contributes to the network 18 Subject Matter Expert Committee. Joanna holds a degree in business, and you should check out her recent blog post, Managing a High-Risk Pregnancy During a Pandemic with Joanna Galis Lee. Welcome, Joanna.
Thank you. Okay, so I called mine 10 quick and easy tips to transplant because I think it's funny because it's neither quick nor easy. So the first tip I have for you is to get sick. You need to do that part. So if you've already gotten sick, then give me a thumbs up because you're there already. Job well done. Or if you're here to support someone, you can go ahead. I like to do the Zoom reaction so I see that people are kind of following along and not totally hating me for how bad this is going without my PowerPoint. So that's my first tip is get sick. My second point is to get smart. So you have to start looking at what you're doing once you're on this transplant journey. And when I mean get smart, I mean start looking up the information that you need to know. This webinar is one of those things. So I would start with your medical records, and Dr. V went over a lot of that. And I think an important point was if you've already had a test, when you go for evaluation, you might not need to do the same one. And that's valuable time saved. And if you're not keeping notes yet, I would encourage you to start keeping notes now of your visits. So if you don't have your medical records, at least you can say, I saw Dr. Viacana last year. We started an evaluation. I know he did an x-ray. So that'll get the wheels turning of where you need to go because they're going to have you fill out medical release forms. So anything you can tell them, like I said, I started at Children's Hospital. So they knew that's where my records would start. And it's always a good idea to just keep notes because you're the only person who is at all your appointments, whether you're before dialysis, whether you're on dialysis, wherever you are on the journey, every doctor that you go see, you're the only one. You're the common denominator there. So if you have your notes, you can say, no, Dr. V said this, or I think Dr. V suggested we do this. Maybe we can chat or call him, or you are the connecting person. And then also look up things that you would have to, like Dr. V was talking about, multiple transplant centers, what your GFR level is, but also part of being smart is checking in with your, I call it emotional smartness. I think for me, at least, COVID kind of hit me with a lot of emotions, and it made me kind of, and I think a lot of people kind of take a moment to kind of have a mental check-in. And I think that's missing a lot of the times to kind of say, it's okay if today is not a good day, but to acknowledge that, because for me, sometimes that would make me not be able to move on. Like, I'm having a bad day. I'm not going to make any calls. I'm not going to call that Dr. Peck. I'm not going to go get my labs. So if you can just admit to yourself and maybe have someone you call or something you look up, or if you have a therapist or whatever that looks like for you, but just get smart physically and emotionally, because everything is going to play a part in the journey that you're probably currently on if you're listening to this webinar. Let me see. Good thing I printed it out. My third tip to get on that transplant journey is to get help. So, and that touches on that emotional piece. So maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a family member, maybe you just need someone to talk to. Or maybe you have a friend that's really good at looking things up and you're like, oh, this is too much for me. And they can you can piece it together with someone. For me, it wasn't a family member. I found an RSN flyer at my dialysis center and I looked it up, and eventually I showed up at a patient meeting, much of what this looks like, but in person a long time ago. And that's where I found my first get help. And I realized I don't have to do this alone, and I really shouldn't because I don't know enough. And someone that's other than your medical team. And I had interjected all these little like Heart if RSN is the help that you found more important. Thumbs up if it's been a family member. Clapping if it's been a friend, because on Zoom you have all those little reaction things. Or confetti if it's been a social worker, which is what I wanted to touch on, is that it could be a social worker because if you're on dialysis, they are there. And not only are they equipped because they do social work. They have the medical knowledge, but they also have studied that background in your mental states to kind of help you along that journey. So you don't have to do this alone. So get the help wherever it looks like for you. Um, and for each of these slides, I actually had a hyperlink to an RSN resource. So I'll put those in the chat when I'm done. But for this one, I had a podcast that Lori was playing that she was talking to a social worker about how social workers can help. So you know how to do that conversation. I would say on my tip number 4 would be to get evaluated, right? So you did your research, you talked to a friend, you talked to the social worker, you found a center near you, you did all that. You got the help. So now you called, you made an appointment. They're going to talk to you, and the biggest part of what's going to happen is you're going to be evaluated. And what's that going to look like? Dr. V talked about it already. It's going to be a bunch of tests. So I took this from Cedars-Sinai website because that's where I got my transplant. The medical team determines if a kidney transplant can improve your symptoms and quality of life. They will evaluate your overall health and support system to see if you're a good candidate. And I like what Dr. V said. He was like, basically, come to us. And if unless there's some reason, it's gonna be a yes. So, it can be overwhelming, but just know that they're not looking for a reason to say no, right? So what it'll look like, the tests will vary. Ultrasounds, office visits, and hopefully some of those tests maybe you've already done, you can skip. But also you're gonna have social worker visits. So it goes back to that getting help and talking to someone. They're gonna wanna know how you're doing, how your support system is. And that doesn't mean you need a ton of family. I know I didn't need that. It just means that you have someone or somewhere, a place you can go to for support because it's a lot. And you're also going to talk to the financial office. Part of the slide on Get Smart was to look up Medicare and insurance because here in America, that plays a part. So it's better to do your homework of what Medicare will cover, what Medi-Cal will cover, what your insurance will cover, and all that, so that you have that in your mind. Because the financial aid, I'm back in college. The financial office will speak to you about your transplant and they will ask you, how are you going to pay for this? Not like that, but they're going to say, what insurance do you have? What coverage do you have? So you should have some of that information because they're looking at everything, your mental state, your physical state, and also your wallet or your coverage. I'm going to be quite honest. It is a part of life. And I would say make the time for those tests. Don't put it off. If you can go, go. Because how long does it take to get evaluated? A month, 2 months, a couple of months. How long does it take you to go get your sonogram, your ultrasound? How long does it take you to do all the things they're asking for? And just know that bad news isn't always bad news. So if they say, you know, you have a condition, they will work with you. Part of what I was put on my slide from the Scripps website was that if they found something like heart disease, maybe you didn't even know you had that. And they will find the right medication or maybe the right procedure to get that stable. That's what happened to me. I had a liver situation also going on. So I had to be considered if I was going to get liver and kidney or just kidney. Thankfully, we were able to come to an agreement of how to get my liver in order with tests and regular visits and medication so that I didn't need to go for a kidney and liver, which actually is a lot harder to get. At first, I thought, oh, give me 2 new ones. Might as well. But then someone talked to me and said, no, no, because that will take you much longer to get that kidney transplant. So I'm glad that someone was able to give me the help to understand that and say, okay, okay, yes, please. Just the kidney. Thank you. And right there, I also have a link to Dr. Viacana and Lori had a great podcast called Cleared, which talks about a little bit of how that evaluation goes. So you get more information on that. My tip number 5 is get listed, right? This is when you get on the list. It's so exciting. On my PowerPoint, I had a man crossing the finish line because I couldn't find a woman. But it does feel like that. It feels like you're crossing the finish line. But this is step 5 of a slide that's 10 slides because getting listed is not the end of the story. Um, it's great to get there and it feels like you've done something and we want to celebrate that. And actually here I wrote, if you have gotten listed already, to give me a thumbs up. If you are waiting to get listed, give me a heart, right? Because I wanted to know you guys were participating in this wonderful presentation I'm giving off the cuff here. Um, and I also had here a link to a previous Hope Week presentation by Dr. Hippen, I believe that's how you say his name, who spoke from more of a medical perspective of how to get yourself successfully transplanted or how to get yourself successfully, on that list and ready to go. Number 6 is Oh, thank you, Suzette. Number 6 is, okay, so you've gotten sick, you've gotten smart, you've gotten help, you've gotten listed, you've gotten evaluated. So now you're done, right? No, now you wait. And Dr. Viacana went over a little bit of the wait times and how, because for me, it was like the average around here says 8 years. And I was double listed. I think he went over that as well. And both of them, I got like almost calls, I call them. It was the call before the call. But what was important was that I was healthy enough at that point to be able to get that call. So this tip I called Get Better because you might be on that list for a long time and you need to stay healthy. And actually what I had was a GIF or a GIF of the BG staying alive, because that is what you need to do at this point is stay healthy and get better. So I got an infection at my PD catheter site. So I was really scared because I was like, oh my God, I've been on this list 5, 6 years and now I get an infection. What if they call, right? So I called my transplant center and I worked with my kidney team and we cleared the infection. I had to go to the hospital. I had to get a whole new catheter. I had to get it replaced. It felt like a lot, but I got better. So by the time I did get the call, it had been 3 months since that infection, just about, because I had to do in-center hemo, I remember, because my PD catheter needed time to heal. And if any of these terms, just put them in the chat and I'm sure someone or I will answer them because I'm kind of flying through it a little bit here. I'm trying. So my point is, just if you're on the list, just make sure you stay healthy. And if you don't, because COVID happens, infections happen, just stay on it and address it, because all that matters is that you get better so that you stay ready for that phone call. Because when they call, they will say, have you been sick? Have you been in the hospital? Because they need to make sure you're healthy enough to get that kidney. And, honesty is always the best policy because nobody wants you to go in there, be sick, get rejected. It doesn't work. And why? Because you weren't ready. But let me move on to the next step. Oh, and there I also had a link actually to a podcast that calls Staying Active on the Transplant List. That goes over a very important topic of understanding kidney offers that you could get. So there's my part of this was to say that RSN website and podcasts and articles, they have so much information. If you just type into the search field any term, which I actually did to put this presentation together, and you get data so quick, exactly what you're looking for. So good job, Lori and the team. My next one, 7 out of 10, is you get the call. So that's the big day. And before I got the call, actually, I got what I was going to say, but I waited for this part, is I got 2 backup calls from both Scripps and Cedars that said, it's not you yet. but you're on number 2, because when there's a kidney available, they don't just call one person. They call at least, I think, 3, if I remember, but, I don't that would be a Dr. Viacana or Lori answer. But I know they call a couple, and they said, "You're the backup, you don't need to do anything yet, you don't need to pack, you don't get on the road." I remember they said, "Don't come." Okay. But wait for our call, because if they call again, then it's a go. Both of those times they didn't call back. But the silver lining there is that you know you're at the top of the list. So if you get one of those backup calls, you know to get that suggestion that someone made at a previous presentation of getting that Fitbit or whatever, that will ring on your watch if you get a phone call, to answer those unknown numbers, because you're getting very close to getting the call. And then I want to talk just a little bit here. I had it on my presentation, about the different kinds of big days that you will have. It could be a cadaver kidney if you were on the UNOS list and they gave you a call, or it could be a living donor. You would probably know a little bit more of the scheduling there, but you could get the call that said, "Hey, I heard back. I am approved to be a donor." So your call could look a little different. There's also paired exchanges, which is a little bit like living donors, but involves more people. And there's also altruistic donation, and there's preemptive transplant, which Carol Franks wrote an amazing article about. And actually, I had linked it in this chat, and I know she's speaking today. I don't know if this is what she's speaking about, but it was a really good, because when I started my journey, I had no idea about preemptive kidney donation. Not that I would have had the resources or the people to do that, but there's so much information for you to look at the different so because that call might look different for you. So you get the call, you go to the hospital, and actually for this one I had a 5-second video of me leaving my house saying I got the call. My husband had filmed it when he was still my boyfriend. And he's like, "Where are you going, Joanna?" And I said, "I got the call, I'm going to the hospital." Um, so you go to the hospital, hopefully everything goes great. I wanted to see if there were other people on the call who are on the list and maybe have gotten a call to give a heart emoji, or who are waiting to get evaluated. Give me a clap just so I know I can see that you're listening to me and I'm still here. Just to tell me where you are in your journey if you're waiting, so, or if a heart, if you're listed and you're waiting for these calls, or you've received a call. Um, so that was, so yeah, I linked to Carol's preemptive donor story in this one. And then number 8, so you get the call, you get your transplant, you're all done. They let you pee in a bag, and that means your kidney's working, and everyone's really excited that you peed. You go home, and then what? You come back to the transplant center a couple times a week initially, and then once a week, and then every 2 weeks, and then once a month. And what will they do at these appointments? The major thing I'm talking about is your medication. So you have to get your meds. So you will start with maybe 10 medications, and then they will reduce it. But the important thing here is that these meds are for your life. These are lifelong meds. And Dr. V touched on it a little bit. There was a bill that passed that was amazing, that kind of guarantees that you have access to immunosuppressant drugs, because what's the point of getting a kidney if you don't take the meds to kind of protect it? Because if you don't take immunosuppressant meds, then your body will reject your kidney. And then we're back at tip number 1, which was get sick, which we don't want to do. So I just want to make a big point of the meds because it's very important. Over the years, I've heard it different. Take them with food, take them before food, take them at a certain hour. You have half an hour range, but all that you can discuss with your doctor. The point is never stop taking them, because a kidney is not a cure, which is also what I heard a lot from my transplant team. It's it's something to continue your life, but it's not a cure, and you need to protect it as such. So the meds are very important. I've seen people at waiting rooms that I've spoken to that didn't take their meds for XYZ reasons, and they're back because they're losing their kidney. So it's really important. And I linked the article to discuss the bill that passed into law to help guarantee immunosuppressant drugs for kidney donors, for kidney recipients, because it's so important. Wrapping up, number 9. So you have your kidney, you've been taking your meds, it's all good. Now what? You still have to go to a doctor, right? So here I put get rechecked because even with your transplant, you're still going to go back to your nephrologist. And I'm on like a 6-month cycle. So I go every 6 months unless something, I have a new one. So I started every 3 months and now I'm okay. I have a baby that I had less than a year ago. So I'm still kind of working on my medication and what I need to do. But there are going to be reasons why you get rechecked. I know Transplant Center likes to see me once a year, but more often for certain reasons. So, like illnesses, like I had to go back when I got COVID because my medication really, that medication that helped Paxlovid really messed up my kidney numbers in my blood work. It was before we really knew if we should take them or not take them, if we needed them or not needing them. So, urge sided on the side of caution with my transplant center, and I took them, but it took a long time to get me back to a level of immunosuppression that was not too high, not too low. So I went to the transplant center a lot for that. I didn't go to my nephrologist because they were the ones checking my numbers. I also went back when I was pregnant. They followed me very closely. Other reasons you would go back to get rechecked other than regular annually or every 2 years is if you get a rejection to your kidney, or you get an infection, or your medications aren't working appropriately. So all of these reasons are why you would go to get rechecked. My point being that you will always have a relationship with that transplant center. And my last step is get going. I had a picture of Betty White saying, go, 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 go. Go, 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 go. Whatever step you're on, just go. Even if today is not the day you're going to go take a rest, but just get going because it's a journey. And if you're not moving, your journey's not moving. And your kidneys are working, like Dr. Viacana said, your kidneys work 24/7. So if they're in decline, they will continue to be until you address it. So just get going.